je yare sora namiam si pamba yahalam koroko bena se labi koroko bena kamale idiarako bena jarama koroko bena kamale. That language that you hear me singing in, it's called Bamana. It's only one of more than 1,000 languages that come from the continent of Africa. And what's unique about me singing in this language and playing the music and celebrating the cultures of West Africa is that, well, I wasn't born in Africa. I was born here. But when I was growing up, I spent a lot of time with my elders, many of whom lived over 100 years. So I listen to their stories, and I am connected to my past through their stories in a way that I otherwise never could have been if it weren't for their stories. And when I was old enough, I traveled to Africa to share in the music and the stories and learn how the ancient oral historians known as griots shared their craft. So what I do is I visit schools all over the world, sharing music and stories and culture through this ancient craft known as Jalia. So let me give you an example of this. Ambe asinana, ambe asinana, ambe asinana. Kumbemba jeli musa ninja lekelu ambi asinana bula bula julula ibola bola kora jaluma ambi asinana kumbemba jeli musa ninja lekelu ambi asinana. There was a little girl, about 4, no, maybe she was 5 years old, and she's standing in her backyard, and in each of her hands, she has an apple. So the mother decides that she's going to test her daughter to see if she's learned lessons of kindness, of caring, to share. So her mother goes outside, and she goes to the little girl, and she approaches her, and here's the test. She looks at her daughter, and she says, "Oh, I see you have 2 beautiful apples." And the little girl looks at the apple in her left hand, and she looks at the apple in her right hand, and she looks up at her mom, and she goes, "Mm-hmm." And then her mother says, "Oh, those apples look so delicious." And the little girl looks at the one in her left hand and her right hand, and she looks up at her mom, and she goes, "Mm-hmm." And then her mother says, this is the test, her mother says, "May I have one of those apples?" And the little girl immediately, she takes an apple in her left hand and she bites into it and starts chewing. And then she takes an apple in her right hand and bites into it and starts chewing. And her mother cannot believe that her daughter has done this to her. Her mother is thinking, I've taught my daughter to be kind, generous, to share. And if she will do this to her mother, then who knows what she will do out in the world. So her mother, just before her mother opens her mouth to chastise her daughter for being so rude, just before the mother opens her mouth, the little girl holds the apple up in her left hand and says, "Here, Mommy, this one is for you. It's the sweetest." If you enjoy this, if you enjoyed the story, the music, share it with your learning community. Bring me Baba the Storyteller, and I promise you, everyone there will have as much joy as you felt in this moment. Yeah, Jalia, Jalia.